Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the live Q&A with me, Professor Michael Scott, and my special guest this week, I should say, Dr. May Musier, kind of has just joined us hot foot off a train from Oxford. We are very lucky indeed to have her here as she comes down to take part in a much bigger event after this afternoon, as she's front and centre in a main stage debate about classics in the 21st century. Mate, welcome. Thank you for taking the time.
It's great to be here, and I'm really looking forward to any questions that arise about classics, and I'm happy to answer them, hopefully.
Hey Judith, hello Alex. Now, mate, I have to tell you about this. So people now on Facebook pages get the top fan badge when they are awesome questioners and awesome participators. Well done, Alexis, for your top fan. Hello, Glees from Brazil, coming from Brazil.
Hola.
Linda, hola, oh, there we go. Like a multilingual here from May. Brilliant. Hello, Linda. Hello. How are you guys? Thank you so much for tuning in. So first off, I think we have to start with a question for May. May, you know, we are joint trustee and directors, newly appointed, of Classics for All, as you may have been aware, kind of as we've put out over the Facebook page in the last couple of days, and we are therefore very passionate, particularly about the study of classics, but also about making sure that everyone has access to the study of classics. So, where does your interest and passion for the classics come from?
Oh gosh, mine was purely by accident. They didn't do classics at school, so I had to come at it from a different angle. So I was very interested in creation myths. So I used to go to the library every day after school when I was in primary school, and this was actually to help with learning English. I wasn't born in the UK. I was actually born in Eritrea, and I went to primary school, and therefore I had to pick up English because I was in an English primary school in the UK. And so when I was going to the library, just to sort of hone in my language skills, I started becoming interested in the creation myth. So that was to start off with. I went to a state school, so there wasn't any form of classics in either primary or secondary. In secondary school, they taught Roman Britain, but that was pretty much about it. But I took history as a GCSE, and so through history I became really interested, so around the subject, not actually in the school, but around the subject. And then it wasn't until I went to a sixth form college where I was doing English literature, and then as an extracurricular I was doing Egyptian civilization.
Now that is an extracurricular option. Hello everyone, hello Radruba, how are you doing? Thank you so much for tuning in. Hang on a sec. I'm sorry to interrupt this story.
Good morning
from sunny Californian beach.
Man,
that is outrageously
so
jealous making.
Yeah.
And that is not allowed. I'm sorry.
No.
Can you retract that and say you're on a rainy beach somewhere?
To be honest,
like
it is quite warm here. So
it is warm, but we are not on a Californian beach. I should say, we are coming live from the bowels of the beast, the belly of the beast, I should say. Which is the Institute of Classical Studies Library in the heart of Senate House in London. So behind me you can see we are in the Byzantine Studies room. They've very kindly given us a little room in one corner of the library to be able to do this live broadcast with you this afternoon. So this is where I come and work kind of when I'm in central London and kind of researching the library along with loads and loads of others. And the Institute for the Classical Studies Library is run jointly by the Hellenic Society and the Roman Society. So between those two, they keep the Greek and Roman worlds pretty well sourced, as well as a couple of others.
You should get a commission, though.
I should get a commission, so kind of come with this. But we interrupted your story. What I love about this story is how people come at classics from so many different angles. Because I didn't come at it from, I was about to be a lawyer. I was 2 weeks away from becoming a lawyer, and kind of had given up Latin years before, had no Latin whatsoever, and then just something kind of pulled me back.
I'll tell you a funny story about the law. So I was doing English literature
with
at
Egyptian civilization.
That was an extracurricular.
Nice.
And one thing that I found, I was reading a text, and it was Anne Rice, Vampire Chronicles. And my full Eritrean name was in there, and I was like, no way, this is so interesting. So that began a process of, I need to find out more about my own sort of cultural history in relation to the Egyptian civilization, and that took me to the Greeks and Romans. And then I was sitting there in English literature class, and my awesome English teacher was reading Tom Stoppard's Arcadia, Now, what he didn't know was that I was getting engrossed in all the classical research and classical illusions, and I thought I was absolutely hooked. And so when the sort of choosing your degree came round for university, degree subject, it was a summer period, and the college was running a classical excursion trip to Rome, to Greece. So I was like, right, I need to go. I begged my mum, and I went, had an amazing time, and I was going to do law actually.
All these lawyers who just
I was going to do law, and then basically ended up, purely by accident, ended up in Swansea studying classical civilization, and that's where everything began.
And the rest is history.
Well, on my graduation day, my family didn't know that I was graduating with a classics degree. They thought I was doing law.
Like kind of thing. Wow, they got a surprise when they turned up. And could we have made Musia come up for her classical civilization degree? I didn't quite let my parents not know what degree I was going to do. That's amazing. Now, we must answer a couple of the questions, but I'm going to come back because I want to come back to something that May is working on now in particular. But before we do that, everyone, it's prize week. I forgot to say at the beginning, this is prize week. So as you know, every month we look back at the questions that we've managed to answer over the live Q&As over the past month, and we pick the best one, and a prize goes to them. So I have the list here of all the questions that we've got through over the past month, and after careful consideration, the prize goes to Sarah Scotty, who asked this brilliant question, which was, did the people of the classical age speculate on the future in terms of, did they imagine what the future was going to look like in terms of flying cars and things like that? Yes. And it sparked a great conversation when we were talking about it last week. On the one hand, that they loved talking about the future, consulting the gods and what have you, but actually in terms of imagining what the future looked like, almost impossible, and didn't really get involved with. So Sarah,
really good
Sarah Scotty, great question. Thank you so much. Get in touch through the Facebook page or with us through email, michaelscottacademic@gmail.com, and your prize, which is a signed copy of one of my books, will be winging its way to you. So please let me know what you'd like written in that book. Absolutely fantastic. Barry, the law department of my university was next to the drama uni. Most of the lawyers became actors. Lawyers are actors, Barry.
Yeah, because they have to put on a performance, don't they?
Just as classicists and teachers and lecturers are as well. We're all actors. We're kind of, well done, Sarah. Linda, well done, top fan. So we have done the prize, and we're going to grab a quick question that you guys have been sending in. Now we've had from Alexandra Alex Grich, moving from past to present, what's your view on modern day virtual reality and augmented reality? May, do you have a view?
Oh gosh. I think from the things that the opportunity it gives to classicists is beyond belief, to really enter the past and to have it there in front of you, I think will really shape the next stages of classics, of how we view the classics, because right now, it's just the only thing you've got so close to that reality is by going to those archaeological sites, like in Greece and Rome, in Egypt, in Iran, Iraq. But actually, I think you wouldn't get how it was originally built, how it is, the completion of a building, and it's just going to take it to another level, the visualization.
And it's interesting because, you spoke about how going on that trip to Greece really, really changed your mind, and putting yourself back in the room. And it was exactly the same for me. 17, school trip to Greece, was all set to do law, but actually being there, I had my 17th birthday in the Sanctuary of Olympia, kind of amongst the ruins, and that kind of made the difference. But it made the difference. And I'm wondering whether easier access via virtual reality and augmented reality to putting yourself back in the lived experience of these sites may well actually help increase the number of people who have those kind of moments.
Exactly. And I think depending on, obviously with new things, they always start off quite expensive, but then they come to, sort of reasonable prices when it comes to the public. Now, for people who are not able to travel to those sites, I think this is a fantastic way of accessing.
Well, one of the things, obviously people know I do through the Ancient Invisible Cities, I do a lot of the virtual reality stuff, and one of the things we've loved doing recently is that we have a whole series of VR headsets at University of Warwick now that we send out to the schools that we work with as part of the Warwick Classics Classics network in the local area. And we've started sending them also to primary schools because they're obviously at Key Stage 2 and kind of where the Greeks and the Romans and the Egyptians are on the syllabus, and they've been loving some of the 360 virtual realities that were created for the program. So we send our virtual headsets out to them. They're watching those 360 and they're coming back absolutely enthused. So kind of thing. Linda, you wished you stowed away with Bethany Hughes down the Nile recently. Don't we all? Who doesn't fancy a bit of a boat trip down the Nile? Although
Bethany's so amazing.
I did see also some pictures of them filming that when they weren't on the Nile, when they were in the middle of the desert with no shade whatsoever. And I've been there when it's been about this time of year. It's 55-degree heat and it is not pleasant in the slightest.
Than the Californian beach, I bet.
Oh no, Olivia, Denise, Elgin, you're talking about the buffering gods. Oh no, well I hope our connection is getting out okay. Gosh. Fingers crossed indeed. Right, we're going to move on to another quick question which comes from Denitsa Ivanova, who's asking about the sanctuary of the great gods in Samothrace. Now, if you've got a chance to go to Greece anytime soon, kind of hello Latifa, hello, how are you doing, kind of thing, from sunny Hampshire. That's more like it.
Amazing.
Kind of California to Brazil to Hampshire. There we go. Like kind of Alison, you went on a school trip to Greece age 17 as well and fell in love with it.
Fantastic.
It
must be like 17.
It's something around the 17, 18. Like get everyone to Greece in 17, 18 when they're 17, 18. Sanctuary of Great Gods in Samothrace. If you get a chance to get out of Athens and out of the mainland and onto the island, go up north, go to the island of Samothrace. It's an amazing archaeological site. And it's home to another one of the mystery cults of the ancient world that Denitsa's asking about. And she's asking about who were these great gods, the Kabeiri, and what were these mysteries that were going on. Frankly, who the great gods were, no one knows for sure because it was never spoken of. In fact, it was against the rules if you were initiated to say which gods were in this grouping of great gods at the Mysteries and the Kabeiri. Lots of rumours and ideas out there about how the gods linked to communities outside the Mediterranean, so to Phrygian gods, to Hittite gods, and kind of bring them together. But the mysteries seem to have worked, again, a little bit different from the other main mystery cult that we talk about all the time, which is down to Eleusis, in that there were no rules about who could and could not be initiated. Anyone was welcome to rock up, and you didn't have to turn up at a certain time of the year, as you did at Eleusis. You could turn up whenever you liked, and you could do both the first and the second stage. Keep up one. There you go. Keep up the good work from May. Brilliant. Hello.
Amazing.
You could you kind of thing. You could have first and second stage of initiation back to back, whereas at Eleusis you actually had to wait a year in between the two. And what you hoped to get out of this, apparently, you had to confess your worst sin.
Oof.
So it's quite weird because these mystery cults have a certain kind of what we might now often call kind of Christianizing kind of aspect to them about sin and culture, which was very rare in Greek religion. Kind of actually sins, past behaviour, not really any interest.
So it's a bit sort of like the confession.
Exactly. You had to confess your sin to a priest as part of the initiation, and part of the initiation was to then absolve you of those sins, give you a better hope for the future in your life, and particularly better protection at sea, because the great gods of Samothrace were particularly interested if you were in sea travel, and also give you a better afterlife.
Wow. Okay.
I mean, it sounds pretty good, doesn't it?
I want a better protection afterlife.
I mean, if Herodotus was initiated into the mysteries of the great gods at Samothrace, I think it's good enough for all of us. Kind of, Mina, thank you. Wish you'd continued your studies past Greek lit in translation O-level in the 60s. It's never too late. Why are you wishing you had done?
I did it through translations. Come on.
But it's not too late to kind of just because you started in the 60s doesn't mean you can't continue in the. Are we in the teenies? We're still just in the teenies.
I have no idea what they call.
And we're going to be in the 20s next year. So come on, make 2020 the year.
And you know what?
Mina, that you come back to classics.
Places like Open University, you could do it distant, learning. So there's so many ways you can get back.
Absolutely. Like we want to hear, Mina, that you've started a course by 2020, kind of at least. And just to finish off Denise's point, she sent in a photo of two intertwined serpents, asking whether this is something to do with the great gods of Samothrace. Now, how are you on your serpent entwined kind of imagery and meaning? Who out there? What do you guys think? If we have two intertwined serpents around a staff, what's that the symbol of? And how does that differ from
the
one intertwined serpent around a staff?
Yeah.
Ooh, I think May knows the answer to this one.
No.
kind of thing. So who is your favourite Barry? Wasn't that just about hospitals? I don't know what you're referring
I think
to, Barry.
he's talking about, you know, the
staff.
Asclepius.
Yes.
And that they use them for the pharmacies and hospitals.
Yes, Barry, you win. I think Barry wins, doesn't it?
But that's the one.
Yeah. So one serpent wrapped around a staff is the symbol of Asclepius, the god of healing.
Yes, a divine.
Semi-divine hero. Two serpents wrapped around a staff is the sign of Hermes, the messenger god.
Of course.
Yes, wasn't Apidavros was indeed a hospital. The two are medicine. No, the two are often confused, but actually, if it's two serpents around the staff, it's Hermes. And if it's one serpent around the staff, it's Asclepius. And I'm banging the desk, and as a result, the whole desk is shaking. There you go. You heard it here. Thank you very much indeed, Denisa, for your questions.
I actually didn't know that.
There we go. Time is flying by. Let's quickly do some what's on and in the news, and then we're going to come back to you for another question. So, what's in the news? First, undisturbed Roman shipwreck has been found off the eastern coast of Cyprus. This is from the Archaeology News Network. So a Roman ship loaded with transport amphorae, probably from Syria and Sicilia, have been found off the coast of Cyprus. Absolutely fantabulous. Vindolanda. I can't resist talking about Vindolanda. It's pretty much my favourite site.
I know.
People, what do we think? May has never been to Vindolanda. I think we need to get her there and follow her around Facebook Live, her reactions to Vindolanda. I think this would be brilliant.
At Vindolanda?
The thing I love about Vindolanda, not only an amazing site, but the fact that every summer they advertise publicly for people to come and take part in the archaeological dig that summer. So there is a public team of people who are just there, and they have come up with a haul. They found a haul of gems, shoes, and a gaming board that the gemstones had fallen down a toilet, and no one had bothered to retrieve them in antiquity, as you can imagine. That probably is sensible. And a 2,000-year-old gaming board has been unearthed there as well, but not down the toilet. So they chucked the gems down the toilet, but not the gaming board down the toilet. And they've also found a soldier's size 11 shoe.
Okay, is it because of the special soil that is in the soil that is in Vindolanda that preserves?
And it's the mud. It's the anaerobic conditions of the mud that just make the preservation so extraordinary. Apparently, someone who's examined the gems and around the gems has concluded that the glue that was used to fix them into their rings was not strong enough, and so the ring broke 2,000 years ago, and instead of repairing it, they chucked it. Chucking away culture even then, but at least archaeologists love this stuff, right? And we get it back afterwards. Sky News, you may have been following this as well. Linda says go to Vindolanda. John says size 11. Wow. Yeah, thank you, John. Well, we didn't go there, but someone had to. Sky News, ancient palace emerges from Iraqi reservoir after water levels fall. Now we've been posting and I've been tweeting a little bit about this. So the cuneiform writing on the tablets indicate that the palace site called Kemune dates to the Middle Bronze Age, about 1800 BCE. I mean, literally, people didn't seem to know it was there at all.
I think there's still so much to be discovered in Roman Britain, and Celtic Britain. It's just incredible.
But I mean, let's go to Iraq as well. I mean, let's get back out there if we can, anytime soon. And let's carry on these finds everywhere. Saqqara, we've been following Saqqara for quite a while on this live Facebook Q&A because of the great excavations that have been taking place there in recent years, and so they just seem to be publishing these stunning finds about once a month. I think they're just teasing us. The Polish archaeologists there have now found about a dozen mummies from Saqqara, so we're waiting to see whether they can be dated and from where they come from. Absolutely brilliant. And then you may have caught this. This isn't a what's on, but I couldn't resist bringing up the National Basketball Association in America. One of their main players, Giannis. I'm going to ask you to pronounce this. Antetokounmpo? No.
Antetokounmpo.
There we go. I think there we go.
Yes.
I think we're somewhere in between. Apologies to Yanni in advance if we got that wrong. He's a Greek, but a basketball player in the US, and he went to the NBA Awards, and he had a blazer design for himself with the interior lining with pictures of the Parthenon. And now he's got all his jackets done with interior linings of Greek sites. I think this is going to start a craze. Last week we talked about socks, Assyrian socks from the British Museum.
Oh, God, I would love those.
Kind of Boris Johnson was seen sporting a pair.
No,
so
maybe I don't love them. Yeah.
Kind of thing. But we had a great game over the week on the Facebook page about what would you like on your favourite socks, and that's absolutely fantastic. But now it's clearly about interior jacket linings from now
Why
on.
not?
So kind of move that to the next level. Now, talking about the Parthenon, May wanted to sort of tackle a question that had come in from Justin Hewitt.
Yeah.
Do you want to go wild?
I think so. I think this was a question which obviously has been in the public's mind for quite some time, and this is about the Parthian marbles being returned to Greece. I think this is part of a much wider dialogue that is happening in the last couple of years of whether museums, particularly those in the Western countries, should start returning artifacts that they've taken from other countries, particularly with the legacy of colonialism. One of the projects that I'm involved in is basically getting Ethiopian Eritrean communities to be aware of the manuscripts, medieval manuscripts that is held in the Bodleian Library, and there's some in the British Library. I think there are different ways of tackling this. I think there is no right answer. It's incredibly complex and nuanced issues, and each sort of artifact should be taken into consideration with other issues, rather than having a blanket sort of answer to this really, really delicate question. Now, with the project that we are working on, it involves the communities. It also involves religious leaders and Ethiopian Eritrean scholars, the Bodleian Library and the Faculty of Classics. A similar thing was done with the Pit Rivers, with the Maasai warriors. So it's actually opening up an honest dialogue of where to go from here. So there are certain museums who do not wish to partake in that dialogue, but there are many, many museums, and including political leaders like Emmanuel Macron in France, who are wanting to open the dialogue with those countries that have been subjugated or colonized in different eras, and some of the items taken out of the countries. This is an incredibly sensitive issue, which doesn't have a simple answer. But I think if you start working from a good place where you've got both groups and individuals coming together and saying, right, okay, we need to make sure that these artifacts are revered, they are sacred to those indigenous tribes and communities of where they were taken from, and also involving those communities at a much earlier stage. There is something else that you could do in terms of the structural system of the museum. Having people from those communities, or sort of from ethnic minorities, being involved in the decision making. And at the moment, all the policy that has been written and so forth is actually been written from a very sort of westernized angle and perspective, which will miss the whole nuances and complexities. So having people from different backgrounds involved in the museum structure, particularly of how you display an exhibition, who writes the text to explain the artifacts and materials that are presented. So it's got to be a collaborative approach. And let's not forget that in some countries, these artifacts, especially from my own country in Eritrea, where it suffered a civil war, there is a lack of conservation skills and resources to support those artifacts.
So taking Justin's question as putting it, as you say, in that much bigger context of the need for a fundamental shift in the way discussions are actually held about these types of issues, and away from the kind of political bear baiting and grandstanding towards saying, okay, let's try and reset the switch here and have a more useful dialogue, not just about ownership and placement, but actually about display, about discussion, kind of.
absolutely.
I'm on board with that. That sounds like a good plan. Kind of tell us your thoughts as well. I suspect this will get an avalanche either over the live feed or kind of over the Facebook page this week about what your thoughts are about the right way to go forward, talking about what to do with items from different cultures that have been taken out of the original culture from which they were created. Rodrigo goes, as a person from a country with 200 years of colonial history, I believe giving back the artifacts may not be the, hang on a sec, can we see more? There we go. May not be the best idea in certain cases simply because the countries don't have the resources to take care of them.
Something that I commented on, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. So these are all things that need to be taken in discussion. How people are then going to get access to them? How easy is it for people to see them? What can the technology do to actually help now with the wonders of technology and kind of virtual reality?
Absolutely case by case
basis.
I mean, with the Parthenon marbles, I think that is on a completely different argument, because you do not have, a museum entering into a dialogue with the country and the people. So it's very difficult to move on to the next stage.
The next stage. Well, fingers crossed. We're kind of there. Now we're running short of time, so we just have to do a quick what's on. So I wanted to point out to you, if you happen to be near Hangzhou, kind of outside of Shanghai in China, from the China National Silk Museum between June and September. This was one of my favourite museums when I was in China last year. Alongside, it has a very good cafe and shop. But the museum's amazing.
All the way to
the
China.
Museum's amazing as well. But they have a Life Along the Silk Roads exhibition, 13 stories during the Great Area of the Silk Roads, which is unmissable. Absolutely fantastic stuff to see. Kind of very close to my heart, the Lytham St Anne's Classical Association, of which I'm very, very proud president.
And I've been working with them since.
Exactly. They've just released their calendar for the 1920 lecture year, and by golly gosh, it is a stonker. Well, kind of so you must come up to see a number of those talks. Kind of coffee is important, Lisa. You're quite right, particularly going around museums.
You don't go all the way to China to get
You certainly don't go to China for coffee. Kind of, when I was in China, I had both coffee and sugar withdrawal because it's quite hard to find anything of either.
Serious?
Okay. We have just launched, the Warwick Classics Network have just launched on the 21st of November. We're going to be doing a Ancient World Storytelling Day. So we've got Natalie Haynes, Caroline Lawrence, Emily Hauser, Alexandra Shepherd, alongside a whole bunch of Warwick staff talking about different topics to do with storytelling and the stories we tell about the ancient worlds. That's a free day for all students, and the morning is aimed at Key Stage 2 and 3, so younger students, and the afternoon at Key Stage 4 and 5. Booking is going to be open for that, so just send me an email or send the Warwick Classics Network Research Fellow Paul Grigsby an email to book in for that. And right now we are on the cusp of the start of the big annual Classical Association and FICA conference for 2019, which May is taking a starring role in with the opening event of classics in the 21st century. She's kind of heading off. That's why we've got to finish on time. She's got to go and do this in a second. But one thing I wanted to talk to you about is about the CA conference coming up over the next couple of days. And I've been looking across the kind of the catalogue of the different panels and speakers, and it struck me that this year, more than ever before, we have a large number of panels that are really beginning to think about classics, Greek and Roman studies, in the context of much wider series of world cultures. There's a panel about Ovid in China, there's a comparative approaches panel looking at kind of, again, Greece and China. Kind of, I'm thinking a little bit about the work as well, kind of the connections between Ethiopia, Eritrean antiquity, kind of in the Greek and Roman Mediterranean worlds, as well as my work kind of trying to connect in more globally with Asia and India. I mean, do you feel that this is a real direction change for the study of classics? In the UK as well as globally? Absolutely,
and I think it's been happening for some time now, although it's gathering speed. So this is in a sense, a culmination of so much stuff happening in the past. I noticed it, sort of in 2014, the wind's kind of changing. And within our own classics community, we've really started looking at the discipline and asking ourselves, how it could be truly representative. If you look at the ancient texts themselves, they are, in a sense, very diverse. But through our own study of the text, somehow we've got a bit muddled and lost in terms of
myopic,
bringing in the diversity of that, and it's it's a simple fact. The Greeks and the Romans were not just living by themselves. They were influenced by other cultures and other civilizations, and so for us to just merely focus on just the Greeks and Romans seems a bit bizarre. So we as a classics community have been moving forward to try and basically make the discipline a bit more diverse, but also to look at our curriculum and see if we can represent diverse scholarship. So it's not just about the ancients, but it's also about modern scholarship and what kind of lens they bring in, those from different backgrounds. So it is really, really encouraging to see that the CA this year has so many diverse panels on diverse subjects, because
spoken about by scholars from a diverse range of communities.
Exactly. So this Sunday, I'm giving a paper on Sunday morning on ethnicity and talking about the Persians, and it's a panel, and it's going to be, I think, the first all-female ethnic minority panelists
at the CA.
At the CA.
In its history.
In
Wow.
its history.
You heard it here, people. History is being made this Sunday morning at the Institute of Education of UCL, just off Russell Square. There you go.
Yes.
I would like to sort of bring this in my experience of teaching this year with ancient global history. And one of the questions that has come in a while back was from Raoul Bagji, who was asking about why is China going to be so interested in portraying itself alongside the story of ancient Greece? Right, surely that's antithetical to its darker and more authoritarian aspects of government, etc. What interest would they have? And I think for me, one of the most interesting things is that as we broaden our scope and vision to study different ancient cultures, and as we do it by bringing into dialogue scholars from a wider variety of places, we're realizing that once again, this ancient material, while it may have happened 2,500 years ago, is just as relevant as important today for modern politics and international relations. And in the China example, China is going crazy over connecting its ancient past with that of ancient Greece right now, because it wants that cultural and philosophical link between what Greece gave to the world and what ancient China has given to the world. And that overlaps with the One Belt, One Road China foreign policy, which has as its dragon head the Piraeus port of Athens, which is now predominantly owned by China. So there are these continuously overlapping connections between antiquity and modernity, which shows you how kind of this stuff, far from being irrelevant and slowly being forgotten about in dusty corner somewhere, is once again going through another revolution, I think, in a way.
I found, I don't know if you read Peter Frankopan's Silk Roads.
Absolutely. Thoroughly recommend it, everyone. Peter Frankopan's Silk Roads.
Exactly. And, sort of going from the sort of ancient civilizations of the Middle East and saying this is such a hotbed of Aryan activity, and in a lot of ways has shaped our modern world, and shaped US policies, British policies, interactions with China, and this is just sort of happening right now, that we are seeing the world through, in some ways, going back to the ancients, which is just incredible.
People, we are out of time. We've already run over time. In fact, so much. May, can we all thank May for being an absolutely fantastic guest on this kind of live Q&A. Thank you for taking the time. Good luck to May also for her panel that's about to kick off on classics in the 21st century, which if you're in the area of Russell Square, it's free. So come along. It's in Senate House. Downstairs in the main hall in Senate House, starting at 5:30 this evening. So come along and join.
And we've got a public engagement workshops tomorrow as well, which are also free, between 1 and 4. And I think they are at the Institute of Education. And they are also accessible to all.
Thank you everyone for tuning in. Next time we will be back, not next week, but the week after. So the 18th of July is when we're coming back for the next Q&A. Thank you everyone, indeedy. It's going to be an absolutely brilliant couple of days ahead with Classical Association Conference. And can I personally say thank you for all your best wishes and good lucks and congratulations that you have very kindly given me over the Facebook page, because I have managed to pass my exam. I had to take an exam this week, and I made it to Principal Fellowship with the Higher Education Academy. So thank you for your support. support, and I feel for my students kind of all the exam pressure and pain that we've put you through over the last couple of weeks. I thought that was over, but it wasn't. Have a lovely rest of the week and a wonderful weekend. Take care, everyone. Bye.